In this video, we want to explain the case of the Manila Guy. In our video How the Bootcamp Actions Affect Real Software Engineers' Life, we mentioned that person A from Tampa couldn't get a job because a Manila Guy took it by paying a bootcamp. But how did the Manila Guy pay for such expensive services? A burger restaurant's crew employee can't afford to pay $50,000 to change jobs. So how is it possible for a Manila Guy to get hired by a company like Company G or Company M? Very simple, the payment isn't immediate but deferred. If he becomes an employee, he pays. If not, he doesn't pay anything. Really? Is this even possible? Well, Clement Mihailescu denounces this in this video, calling it the coding bootcamp apocalypse of 2024. Himself denounces the fact that bootcamps are proposing an agreement where students pay only upon being hired, rather than beforehand, which would make the business unprofitable and cause all bootcamps to disappear. Many would say, Insha Allah, which has similar expressions in other languages and means God willing. But what Clement doesn't realize is that this is the apocalypse of clean hiring practices, free from alleged bribes, in any company. Clearly, when a student defers payment to a bootcamp, these organizations become more interested in getting that same candidate working as soon as possible. Therefore, if 50% of the students who defer payment of bootcamp fees are unable to pass the exam and get the job, for any reason, it represents a significant financial loss for the bootcamps. That's why these students become a priority, and the bootcamps themselves need to employ these students as quickly as possible, regardless of whether they are even prepared to answer interview questions. In other words, if a bootcamp agrees to defer payment to a student, that student becomes a burden on the bootcamp unless they charge significantly more for the time it took to find him a job. This makes him a high priority, and he will get the job before anyone else. So, if you decide to pay for a bootcamp services and pay the $50,000 in installments to ensure you get hired by Company G, remember that someone else will end up paying more than you. He will only cover his costs with bonuses and salaries, which will be about 4 times what you're paying. The bootcamps only receive the full amount expected from that student when they hire the one who deferred their payments. Therefore, if you pay for the bootcamp services upfront, you might not be included on their hiring list this month because you're not a priority. That's why there are so many cases of people complaining that the worst thing that could have happened to them was signing that agreement with a bootcamp, because after getting the job, they ended up unemployed a few months later with more debt than they could have ever imagined. So yes, it's much more profitable than Clement Mihailescu thinks, and we recommend you to get away from any kind of agreement with any bootcamp, because in every mafia, it happens that someone in a position of power like him sends someone like this to remind the unsuspecting person who signed the agreement that they either pay everything they're asked for now, or their family will pay the price. This happens immediately after the mafia fulfills its part of the deal, which is to practically force the student into the job, no matter how terrible his interviews could be. As we explained in our video Issues between US government and bootcamps activities, many bootcamps try to sell the exact profile needed to get the job, and that involves creating studies and work experiences that never existed. This includes answering calls or emails while pretending to be employees of this non-existent organization, but in reality, those answering are workers or slaves of the same mafia. We already explained it in the mentioned video. Likewise, they force the candidate to let them organize everything, including scheduling interviews and negotiating salaries and bonuses once they're hired. That's why they already know firsthand how much he's going to earn, when, and how much he'll be paid. That's why someone in a position of authority like him sends someone like this to collect, month after month, the cut that belongs to the mafia that controls everything. In the case of small and medium-sized businesses, they demand that the new employee pay their first and second salaries in full, depending on the total amount of services charged to this naive person's account. In the case of large or giant companies, they offer a welcome bonus or signing bonus that is at least 3 to 5 months' salary for the new employee. But with the negotiators of these mafias, they can raise those bonuses to more than 6 months' salaries. So, that's how the Manila Guy, earning minimum wage, goes from a burger place to Company G or any other. Company G might give him a bonus of $150,000 to leave the Philippines for the United States with his family. But since the mafia had already negotiated everything with both the Manila Guy and the company, they sent this guy to collect $130,000 as soon as he received it in his account. They left him with only $20,000 to get to the United States and rent a place to stay. This person rented a room, not an apartment or house as Company G had expected. He left half the money for the family, who had to stay in Manila because they couldn't all travel at the same time. This allowed the mafia to send this guy back to the guy's family to extort more money from the first-year bonus at Company G, which was the same amount as the signing bonus. Because of this, the Manila Guy tried to survive as best he could until he reached 18 months and could find a way to bring his family from the Philippines with him, hoping the mafia would finally leave them alone and he could have his family with him. Furthermore, by exceeding 18 months without resigning or being fired, he would no longer have to pay Company G for the bonuses that the mafia previously kept. We already know that in the contract with Company G, if the Manila Guy leaves the company before the first 12 months, he has to return that signing bonus. But if he also receives the first-year bonus and leaves the company before the first 18 months, then he has to return both bonuses. As we discussed in our videos how the bootcamp actions affect real software engineers' lives and how the bootcamp students are victims of the same fraud too, the Manila Guy might want to leave Company G and is just waiting to no longer have to return the bonuses money that the mafia forced him to hand over. As soon as the 19 months are over, he resigns and then finds himself working alongside person A from Tampa at the same supermarket. The Manila Guy doesn't want to know anything more about computing, and person A from Tampa still can't get a job in his own profession because the same mafia that someone like him controls won't allow it. We pause to give due recognition to James Hong and his entire career in film and television, but now we want to warn you that while Mr. Hong won't call you or ask you for anything, the characters he has portrayed so often exist in real life and they don't mess around. So, we urge you, as soon as you hear the word bootcamp, to run for your life and the lives of your entire family, because in this case, we're talking about a Manila guy, but the guy doesn't necessarily have to be from that city. It could be from India, Macau, Hong Kong, Nigeria, Brazil, Mexico, Algeria, Albania, the Czech Republic, it could be from anywhere in the world. Even the child of one of your neighbors in your own neighborhood in the United States. That's why we urge you to support us in getting the authorities and the government to focus on boot camps, because they may be evading taxes, laundering money, and participating in a new form of human trafficking. We are calling for your support to get ICE off our streets and going after every boot camp, no matter how legitimate they may seem. Because first and foremost, we deserve for all the people who, like Renee Nicole Good, live among us in our neighborhoods to continue living in the same peace and tranquility we've always known. And without these criminal networks, the number of undocumented immigrants would be significantly reduced. And second, it's not fair to deport people who arrive in our country daily, like the Manila guy. There's no need to increase the cost of H-1B visas. What is needed is to dismantle the entire infrastructure these mafias have today, because the Manila guys don't come to our country on their own. Sometimes they haven't even considered coming to America, and it's these organizations that force them to come on the terms they prefer. Because it's one thing to charge $50,000 to a fool like Clement Mihailescu, who still hasn't realized the crime he committed against the company that gave him his first job. And it's quite another to lure someone like the Manila guy with the promise of his dream job, charge him nothing at first, and then charge him almost $200,000 for his and his family's freedom. So, we ask you, is it possible that Manila guy are arriving in our neighborhood every day under the conditions we described in this video? Is it profitable for any bootcamp to allegedly sell dreams to people who didn't dream of them, in exchange for almost 4 times what they charged those who paid upfront like Clement? Help us spread the word, because this is happening all over the world, not just in America. It's happening throughout Europe and in emerging economies. So share this with all your family and friends so they don't fall for boot camps, and at the same time, share this with your government so they can stop this massive scam. Like this video, share it on your social media, subscribe to our channel, and follow all our 2026 tips. This will also help more software engineers understand what's happening today. Remember, by sharing this video on your social media, we can all work together to defeat boot camps in 2026.